Before you were born, before your parents were born, before humans existed, before multicellular life existed, there was a single cell, and that cell did something. It made a copy of itself. That copy made a copy. That copy made a copy. That copy made a copy. For 3.5 billion years in an unbroken chain, every single copy eventually leading in a straight line to you. You are the product of the most successful copying process in the history of the known universe, and it never once stopped, not for a single generation. But here's what nobody asks when they study reproduction for the first time. Why? Why does life reproduce at all? The answer is almost too simple. If something doesn't reproduce, it dies and it's gone forever. The only things that survive long enough to be here now are the things that were good at making copies of themselves. Reproduction isn't something life does. Reproduction is what life is. And here's where it gets interesting. Most life on Earth does this without ever needing a partner. Think about this. Bacteria, amoeba, hydra, fungi, ferns, potato plants, strawberries, none of them need two individuals to reproduce. One organism, one set of instructions, one copy. That's enough. It's called asexual reproduction, and it has been the dominant form of reproduction on this planet for most of its history. So before we ever talk about sexual reproduction, let's understand how life copies itself alone. In the next 7 minutes, 3 things are going to land. 1. What asexual reproduction actually requires and why it's the most efficient system biology ever invented. 2. The 5 methods organisms use to copy themselves and why each one is perfectly designed for a different situation. 3. Why being a perfect copy is both the greatest advantage and the most dangerous weakness in biology. Here's the framework I want you to keep in mind through this video. Imagine reproduction as copying a book. Asexual reproduction is photocopying. Fast, perfect, identical every time. Same words, same sentences, same story. The copy is indistinguishable from the original. That sounds ideal, and for most of life's history, it was. So what is asexual reproduction exactly? At its core, it is one parent producing offspring without the involvement of another organism. No partner, no fusion of cells, no genetic contribution from a second individual. Just one organism making a copy of its own DNA and producing a new organism from it. And here's the key word, identical. The offspring produced by asexual reproduction is genetically identical to the parent. A clone. Same DNA, same traits, same strengths, same weaknesses. The only source of any variation is if a copying error occurs during DNA replication. And those errors are rare and usually tiny. One parent, one copy, genetically identical offspring. That's asexual reproduction. Now here's where this gets genuinely interesting. Because asexual reproduction isn't one thing, it's 5 completely different strategies. Each one evolved for a different environment and a different challenge. Let me walk you through each one. Binary fission, the simplest possible reproduction. The organism grows, its DNA replicates, and then the entire cell simply splits into 2 equal halves, 2 complete identical daughter cells. Amoeba does this. Bacteria do this. A single bacterium in ideal conditions can divide every 20 minutes. One bacterium at 8 am is over 16 million bacteria by 4 pm. That's not a typo, that is binary fission working at full speed. Budding. Instead of splitting equally, the organism grows a small outgrowth, a bud, from its body. This bud develops into a new organism, genetically identical to the parent. When it's ready, it detaches and lives independently. Hydra does this. Yeast does this. The key difference from binary fission, the parent stays intact. It doesn't split. It just grows a copy off the side and sends it out into the world. Think of it like a tree growing a branch that eventually becomes its own tree. Spore formation. This one is different. Instead of growing a new organism directly, the parent produces hundreds of tiny, lightweight reproductive units called spores, each one capable of growing into a completely new organism under the right conditions. Bread mold, Rhizopus does this. Ferns do this. Mosses do this. The advantages of spores is dispersal. They are so light that air currents can carry them over vast distances. One bread mold on your kitchen counter can release thousands of spores, each one landing somewhere new, potentially starting a new colony. It's not just reproduction, it's reproduction plus migration in a single step. Fragmentation, the simplest to understand. The organism breaks into fragments, and each fragment grows into a complete new organism. Spirogyra, the green algae you see in ponds, does this. You can break a Spirogyra strand into 10 pieces. You get 10 Spirogyras. This is why clearing certain water bodies of algae is so difficult. Breaking it up doesn't kill it, it multiplies it. Vegetative propagation. This one happens all around you. New plants growing from the non-reproductive parts of existing plants, roots, stems, leaves, rather than from seeds. Potato grows from eyes on the tuber. Ginger grows from rhizomes. Bryophyllum, the miracle plant, grows new plants from the edge of its leaves. Strawberries send out runners along the ground that root and become new plants. Farmers and gardeners use this deliberately. When you want an identical copy of a plant, same fruit quality, same taste, same characteristics, vegetative propagation is how you get it. Cuttings, grafting, layering, all variations of the same principle. One plant, perfect copy, no seeds required. Quick one, I'll give you a scenario and you match the method. You find a green film growing on a piece of bread in your kitchen. You break it off and throw it away. 2 days later, there's mold growing in 3 different spots in your kitchen. Which method of reproduction explains why throwing it away made things worse? Spore formation. When you disturbed the mold, you released its spores. Lightweight, airborne, invisible, and they landed in new locations. You didn't eliminate the mold, you spread it. Understanding reproduction isn't just biology. Sometimes it's knowing why your kitchen keeps losing. Before we get to the aha moment, one more method that sits slightly apart from the others. Regeneration. Some organisms can regrow entire body parts or even entire organisms from fragments. Planaria, a flatworm, is the most dramatic example. Cut a planaria in half, you don't get one dead worm, you get 2 complete worms. Cut it into 5 pieces, you get 5 worms. The key distinction, and this comes up in exams, is that regeneration is not the same as reproduction. An organism doesn't regenerate to make offspring, but if fragmented, those fragments can regenerate into complete organisms. It's a survival mechanism that happens to result in reproduction when the organism is damaged. Remember the photocopy metaphor from the start? Asexual reproduction is photocopying. Fast, efficient, identical every time. Here's the problem with photocopies. If the original has an error, every single copy has that same error. And when the environment changes, when a new disease arrives, when the temperature shifts, when food sources disappear, every single organism in the population faces that challenge with identical tools. Same strengths, same weaknesses, identical response to a new threat. And if that new threat defeats one, it defeats all of them. This is why asexual reproduction, for all of its speed and efficiency, is not enough on its own for complex life to survive a changing world. You need variations. You need different copies, not perfect ones. And that is why sexual reproduction exists. Asexual reproduction asks, how do I make a copy as fast as possible? Sexual reproduction asks a different question. How do I make a copy that can handle whatever comes next? Same goal, completely different strategy. This is why crop scientists are terrified of monocultures, fields of thousands of genetically identical plants, all clones of the same high-yield variety. If a new pathogen evolves that can attack that specific genetic profile, the entire crop fails simultaneously. It has happened. The Irish potato famine of the 1840s, the near extinction of the Cavendish banana in the 1950s, both caused by genetically identical populations with no variations to fall back on. The biology of reproduction isn't just interesting. It determines which species survive and which ones don't. So, if asexual reproduction is the photocopy, what's the alternative? Plants figured out an extraordinary answer. They invented a way to combine genetic material from 2 completely separate individuals, without either of them ever moving. The mechanism they built to do it is one of the most beautiful things in biology, and is hiding inside every flower you have ever seen. That's the next video. Stay curious!